friends. Today I am talking about Troubling Education by Kevin Kumashiro. This is a deeply powerful and personal book about how queer activism can help us rethink how we teach. Kumashiro says education should not always feel easy or comfortable, but it instead should push us to feel challenged and reflect and push us to grow further. So, what exactly does my book talk about? Kumashiro explains that the real learning often happens during moments of discomfort and crisis. He shares stories from queer activists and moments of his own teaching that schools sometimes say that they're challenging oppression, but they're actually supporting it. He describes four common ways teachers can teach against oppression, but says we have to keep questioning and pushing beyond those. He even brings in queer theory and psychoanalysis to really ask, what if teaching isn't about fixing the world, but it's about shaking it up and seeing things differently? So, what are my five key takeaways? One is that comfort can get in the way. Students often want learning to feel safe, but avoiding discomfort can completely inhibit growth. Even progressive students might push back when learning challenges their identity or their own personal privilege. Now, I talked about earlier how there's four approaches to anti-oppressive education. Kumashiro lists them as teaching the other, teaching about the other, critiquing privileges and othering, and challenging both students and society. He says none of these are enough on their own, and we need to keep questioning them. There could be more than the four approaches. We just have to keep learning and keep questioning in order to keep oppression out of our schools. Another key takeaway I had was queer as a way of thinking. Queer isn't just an identity, it's a method. Queering education means breaking apart those fixed categories and changing the norms and what we teach and how we exactly teach about it. My other approach of anti-oppressive education is learning through crisis. Crisis isn't bad. We need to stop looking at it in this such negative way because it's a part of how real learning happens. Teachers should make room for discomfort and not avoid it. And number five, activists are teachers too. The queer activists in this book show us how activism is a kind of teaching. Their stories teach us how to be vulnerable, how to reflect on ourselves, and be brave to work on our own as teachers. We can go outside the box. We don't need to be trapped inside this box because as teachers, we want to keep learning. It is so important as a teacher, if you are looking to be a teacher, that you want to keep learning and that you want to keep growing. You don't want to be stuck in this oppressed state. You don't. It's not helpful to your students and it's not helpful to you. So, how exactly does this connect to our class? This book lines up well what we've been learning. It shows how schools often support the status quo even when they claim to be inclusive. Four approaches connect to our class ideas in multicultural education and critical pedagogy. It brings up intersectionality, how race, gender, class, and sexuality overlap in oppression, and that's a big thing inside of schools. Every single class you will have a melting pot of so many different types of students. So being aware of intersectionality is so deeply important. It also challenges the ideas that teachers are neutral. We've talked about in class how teaching has always been under a political lens. There are so many laws being made all the time about teaching, and we should be aware of that fact so we are aware of our rights and what we are teaching our students in the future. What's my next one? Oop, there we go. The stories from queer activists remind us of how we lived experiences and we can drive real educational change, something we've explored throughout our readings and reflections this whole time. We need to be able to work for change. Teaching will never, ever, ever be linear. It won't be. Things will change over time. Laws will change. Political ideology will change. Social norms could change. We have to be ready as teachers to change and take in that change, even if it's scary and even if it's uncomfortable. So, lastly, why does this matter for future teachers? As future teachers, this book helps us rethink our role. It's not just about teaching written content. It's about shaping the classroom as a space for growth and justice, which means seeing how we may unknowingly repeat systems of power, making room for hard conversations and uncomfortable learning moments, being willing to question our own beliefs. If we want our students to question their beliefs, we better be ready to also question our own. And finally, learning from activists and being brave enough to take these risks. If this book taught me anything, is when I'm a teacher, I want to be a taker. I want to challenge the norms. I do not want to keep encouraging oppression and privilege when my students deserve to grow. My students deserve to know that everybody has a space, everybody has a voice, and things will change, and that is okay. Being uncomfortable is not the end of the world. It means that you are learning and growing. And that meant a lot to me while reading this book. I also wish to note that Kumashiro reminds us that anti-oppressive teaching is not a step-by-step method. It is a lifelong commitment to reflection, change, and justice. You have to be willing to be okay with that. You must be willing to be uncomfortable. And I think that's just really important. And this book really meant a lot to me as a queer teacher as well, knowing that activists who are queer as well, it models teaching. It makes me feel like I have a place within teaching, even when society, from even back in back in the old days when they used to make teachers admit that they were gay. For what? For no reason. So I just really think it is important to take in queer perspectives, to take in everybody's perspective and always be questioning and always be learning. Thank you so much for this year. It was a really good learning experience for me, and I can't wait to continue learning in the future. Thank you so much. Bye.